Jeff and Danette, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this.
It's
Good
awesome.
to be here.
Pretty excited about this one. We had your son and daughter-in-law on already,
Nate and
and
Leah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
We learned a couple fun facts. Thought we'd talk about it, but before we get there, we do like to open it up with one very important question,
Yeah.
Sure.
right? And we like to start just to kind of take the edge off. Let's just get down to the deep stuff. Between me and Amanda,
Oh, no.
who's your favorite?
Oh, no. No.
Well,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would say that Amanda's a little bit more competitive. She's a greater challenge than what you might be.
There we go. No.
Brilliant. Jeff consistently beats me at tennis.
All the
It is the bane of my existence. to
Like a
lose to
drum,
Je-
man.
Oh, like
Like
a
a
drum. Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. Good job, Jeff. No, we had Nate and Leah on, and they were awesome. Amazing job. Great,
course.
great
Good
kids.
job, guys. Yeah.
But there was a couple things. One, I did not know that you can sing.
Oh.
Yeah, I did not know
I love
that.
to sing.
I did not
I
know
love
that.
to sing.
So he was telling me when he joined worship for the very first time it was because his mom led the worship team.
Well, yeah. So I organized the high school worship teams.
Wait, like High School Musical?
No. I mean, we tried to introduce.
Kind of.
We tried to introduce some dancing, but
Come
that
on.
didn't quite go over
Yeah.
in the church that we were in. But anyway,
That's very
Awesome.
exciting.
yeah.
Very
so,
exciting.
yeah.
Well, listen, I was blown away by that. But the thing I think that impacted us the most,
Well, and those of our children
and,
who are
and
listening.
our children who watched the podcast, it really
Good for them.
impacted them, was the born again birthdays you guys
Yes.
did with
Yes.
your kids.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple things about that, but I want to tell you this, that my son watched the podcast. He's 21, and he called me, he said, Dad, you owe me about 17 born again birthdays.
There you go. Restoration.
And he said, should I send you a list? I said, send it to Jeff.
Jeff,
You have a little time to make up.
Yeah.
we didn't
So-
even know that was a thing.
No,
though,
I think you've
at all.
invented the thing.
Yeah.
She invented it.
Yeah.
I did invent the thing.
Good job. It's
How did you
And
come
I-
up with that?
I'm not really sure. So, Holy Spirit, right? Holy Spirit. But I think some of it was my kids were really young
Yeah.
when they asked about Jesus and wanted to ask him in their heart. And you have all of life in front of you yet. And I was like, this is such an important moment for you that I want you to remember the details around it.
So good.
And so every year it was just talking about, do you remember how it all came about? What the circumstances were, and let's celebrate it.
So
And so
cool.
we always did gifts. We did.
It's amazing.
I don't know if we did a cake or anything, but it was a big deal. We went out
Yeah.
to eat, and did the gift thing. And the gift was always something religious or
Yeah.
Right,
that would help them in their growth or whatever.
So great.
I mean,
It
it
was
was.
fun.
I think it was really good. I mean, everybody needs to work on their testimony, but no
Yeah.
one does.
Right.
And so this was a very intentional moment. When if we'd go out to eat or we'd have their favorite meal or whatever, and then we could talk about and they could just kind of bring up to date how to verbalize, their testimony.
So
which
good.
was fantastic.
I gotta tell you, it's one of the things me and Mandy, we actually listen. We talk about everybody, just about just our reverence for people. And one of the things we were always really impressed with was how you guys were as parents. The first person we met in your family was your daughter, who just recently got engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
So you met Hannah first.
Met Hannah first, so she was on Rev, and we came
right.
in from California to teach.
All right.
And we met her, and then you guys came in and were bringing soup.
Yep.
You brought soup
Oh
for the
my
team.
goodness.
And I had never met you before, and I met you guys, but I was so impressed with your daughter. Just in the short time frame, I was like, wow, she's really, she was kind and sweet and really grounded and very quiet. She's very quiet,
Yeah.
but you could see all of this. She was the embodiment of meekness, like that contained strength. you'd see the strength that was in her that was contained so well. So I was really impressed with her, and then I met you guys. I thought, wow, they did a good job. You know, like they really, I didn't know
With
about
one, right?
Right, yeah, I didn't know how many
around the house
but
long, have
you
you?
killed the game there. But I think I've met all your kids at this point. They're just wonderful kids. You know, we're good friends with Nate. I'm good friends with Nate, obviously, and
Yeah.
his wife Leah, and he's a phenomenal young man. Your older son Aaron, he's just phenomenal. Then you have another daughter
Yes.
who I've actually not really ever met. Now that I think
true,
about it,
yeah.
she lived in California for a while, and
Right.
but all your kids just are such a great example.
Yeah.
And when I heard listening to Nate talk, just kind of listen to him talk in the podcast we did, just reminded me so much of like how good of a job you guys have
Yeah.
done. So just wanted to tell you, you guys
Well,
did a great
thank
job.
Good job, guys.
guys.
You did
Yes.
a great job. And if my kids ever get anything wrong, I'm always going to send
We
them to
send
you.
them, yeah. Here you go.
But so
Mama prays a lot.
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That's for sure. But no, we just want to thank you guys for all you do. You know, for you that don't know, Jeff and Danette are elder. Jeff is an elder at one of our campuses,
Yes.
and
Holland campus.
The Holland campus has been. You guys have been super faithful there and
Yes.
just done an amazing job, and we're just very grateful for you. So we wanted to, if it's okay with you guys, want to take this time and really talk about your guys' passions and the importance of some of those passions, right? And also get a little bit of your story, right? So we don't want, we gotta be careful
Right.
here now,
Right. We're old.
right? Well, no.
Wow, okay.
We don't want to wow.
Edit that out.
Yeah. Like, Jeff, don't start telling us about how you were in high school with
Well,
Moses. None of
yeah,
that.
exactly.
None of
Me
that.
and Mose.
Yeah. But what we really did want to talk, ask you just like tell us about, if you can, like you guys, you just tell us like what age you get saved, how Jesus impacted your life, how you met, and then kind of how you guys developed your passion in ministry together. Does that sound good?
Sure,
Sounds
it does.
great.
All right. Who wants to start?
Go ahead.
Jeff.
Jeff.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I was saved really, really young.
Yeah.
I mean, grew up in the church, godly family. But I think to me the moment was in high school. When at that point we still had Sunday night services.
Sure.
So, and you had youth group right before Sunday night service. And
Right.
so youth group was finished and the horror of horrors happened. I didn't have anyone to sit with at Sunday church.
I
So
remember
as a ninth grader, that's pretty traumatic.
Yes, it is.
But it was God's intervention, because the pastor, like everybody says, preached a sermon right to me.
Yeah.
And felt like he was preaching a sermon right to me, and he really was talking and preaching the first time. I mean, this was back in the 70s,
Yeah.
about the impact of being filled with the Spirit, and that there was another aspect to being born again. I'd never heard that, but
Wow.
I knew that God was really talking, and so they did an altar call, and I went down, and that, to me, that wasn't my born again salvation
yeah,
experience, but that was the beginning of my personal relationship with
So
Christ.
beautiful.
That made all the difference.
So beautiful. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So for me, again, grew up in a Christian home, a church family. Talking about actually confessing with your mouth and asking Christ into your heart really wasn't talked about, though. And so it really, when I received Christ, was living with a roommate in college who
No
just
way.
exemplified Christ.
Wow.
Now, I'd been reading scripture, I'd been praying,
Sure.
I was going to church, but
Yeah.
I hadn't actually confessed Christ as my Savior. So, but watching her and the peace that she carried and everything, I asked her about it, and she prayed with me. And so that was a super turning point for me. But I think because my heart was so much for God and I was crying out for more of Him, I was baptized in the Holy Spirit during that time as well.
Wow.
But it wasn't really known to me
Sure.
until some years later, too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then Nathan was the one that asked to be water baptized, and we
did?
had never been water
No
As
baptized.
way.
adults, they
And
didn't
we
teach
were,
it.
yeah. Wow. He was, 10 years old? And, around there anyway. And so we got water baptized the same time that he did.
That's amazing.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
How did he not tell us that?
I know, right?
He was here for an hour and a half. That's amazing.
He led the way.
He led the way. Wow, can I tell you, I love those stories. We've had we've been blessed enough over the time of doing this podcast to talk about the power of children
Yeah.
and their faith and how their faith can transform a family. And that is just that's a beautiful story.
Yeah. It gets
That's
better.
Nate the Baptist.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really good story.
Yeah.
That's
It
great.
is.
So you guys, you were saved, you said early years of college?
Right.
So 18, 19?
Yeah, 18.
How old were you when you guys met?
I was 25.
You were 25, I was 22.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Picked her out of the church choir, dude. Seriously, scoped her right out of the
Yeah.
church choir.
Wow.
Didn't even know her name.
No
Yeah.
way! You were
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
This
That's
hot
it.
chick
Yeah.
in the choir. There she was.
No, he told me that God kind of highlighted me.
oh, I'm
and
sure
was
he did.
like-
I totally did. Totally did.
God
Baby,
told
God
him that's
highlighted
the
you to me,
woman
too."
you're gonna marry. Yeah.
No, true story.
That's amazing.
That-
Really,
100-person church choir.
Well,
Re-
it wasn't 100, honey. 50.
There is only
well,
one.
There was only one. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
So you see her singing, and you're like, that's the one.
Seriously, it
No, I
was exactly
I
like
actually
that.
can relate to this. I remember the first time I ever saw Amanda. She walked into a place I was working. I turned to my buddy and I said, "I'm going to marry her," and he was like, "No, you're not." True story. I was like, "I'm going to marry her." We'll tell that story some other time. But
Right.
I remember the first time I saw her, I knew. I don't know why. I wasn't a Christian. I just knew I was going to marry her. And my buddies all laughed at me. They thought I was absolutely insane that I would even say that out loud. Plus, they thought she was way too good for me. They were right.
They were.
But so you see her in the choir. She's singing. Do you notice him in the audience then?
No.
God didn't highlight him to you?
No. No. Okay. No. Sorry, dear.
Love you, honey.
But when I found out via his sister that he wanted to meet me.
Yeah.
Then I'm looking at the
Yeah.
I'm looking at the people out there
No
like
clue who.
who is it?
No way.
clue.
So you sent your sister in?
Absolutely, man.
Smooth, man. This is a great story.
Listen,
So
I
God
grew
highlights
up,
you and
if
you're like,
you-
sis.
She was in the choir.
Okay, that makes more
12
sense.
years older than
was.
him, right?
Right.
Your
She's
sister's
my
12.
big-
Wow.
Yeah, I'm the baby of the family.
Are you really?
Right, best for last. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't wait for them to watch this.
Oh, they know.
Yeah, they've heard it for how many years?
That's brilliant. So your sister's in the choir, you see her singing, and you're like, that's my wife. What do you say to your sister?
So I'm like, can you find out her name?
Well, can you introduce me?
Right.
And then, so.
So she did, but she probably didn't do it the most smooth way possible.
No, just came up to me. Yeah, my brother wants to meet you. Can I have your name and phone number to give to him?
No
Well,
way.
I mean, she did
That's all
do
she
what
said.
you asked.
All
Yeah,
she
exactly.
said.
I mean,
And then
she
did you give her the phone number?
So I was just kind of like, okay. So I did. I'm like,
Aw.
Your real phone number?
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the
all right.
story. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
But this is landline, guys. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
cell
I
phone.
know. Oh, yeah, I know.
What?
No, finish.
But in the church lobby?
No. So
Oh.
even before that, so I have her phone number.
Yeah.
So I script out the phone call.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
I script it out.
Yes.
I'm pacing back and forth, dial 2 numbers and chicken out, dial 5 numbers and chicken
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and finally get there, only to find out that she had just left to
I
go
left
back
town.
home over the holidays.
I had pneumonia.
Oh, no.
So I left for 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Wow, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, that's
so
a
poor
long 6
Jeff.
weeks.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I get back, and some situation had happened. We had to move out right away. So phone numbers change when you move.
Yeah, right.
He had to start all over again.
No way.
Did you send your
Made me
sister
work.
in again that time?
Did you send your
Again.
do you send your sister in again?
Again.
You did? I was, okay.
Hey, listen, when I grew up, everybody thought I was going to marry a basketball.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
yeah,
if you I played every sport imaginable,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was my life until I met her.
You are an amazing athlete. I will give you that. You are a
Yes.
very good athlete.
Yes, you are.
A much better athlete than you are trying to pick up your wife, though.
Clearly,
Fair point.
Clearly,
Fair
it
point.
worked out.
It worked
though,
out.
right?
This
It
is
worked out.
clearly
That's
God.
right.
Yeah.
He said his
Clearly was
sister
It really
twice.
was. It really was because I finally met him in the church lobby.
Okay.
I saw some of my friends, just a mingle of people, and some of my friends were there. And so I went up to them and I was like, "Hi, guys." And all of a sudden, here comes his sister, and she's like, "Oh, you guys have met."
Oh, no
He
way.
was one of the group
I
of the
was
guys
in
in
the
the group.
Oh, okay.
So
And
what did you think when you saw him right away then?
So
in that small group,
I was very nice.
in that small group, did God highlight him to you?
No.
Okay, still no highlighting.
No highlighting. No highlighting.
Have I been
But
highlighted now?
34 years later. But I was very nice and
You were. You were.
Did you think maybe? At that point, were you like, maybe? Like, I think.
you know, I didn't want to date at the time. I didn't want to date. So he calls me for our first date, you guys.
Where is the identity in Christ training? Should I go to that?
Who does grief in this church? Who does grief?
That's where it all began.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So our first date, I fasted the whole day.
Wow.
And I said to the
So
Lord,
that's why you ate so much pizza.
I said to the Lord, if he's not the one,
Yeah.
that I don't want to keep something going.
Right. I
You
get
know,
that, yeah.
I want to know. And I was like, if he's the one, then I want us to talk about you and the church.
Yeah.
And
I
he
did.
did.
Right away?
Clutched it,
Right
baby.
on.
Come on, look at that. Jesus hooking you up. I like
Yeah,
that.
So that clinched it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you knew like right away, first date, you're like, all right, that's it.
This is it.
When did you guys talk about knowing? How many dates? If you say on the first date, I was gonna be shocking. But you think it was very long or pretty quick?
I don't know that we talked much about it.
Really?
No. I mean, it was probably a good several months,
Yeah.
you know,
Good for
Yeah.
you guys.
Yep.
before we started. I mean, I think we were both very committed and sure that we were gonna push through. I don't know that we
Right.
had a
Get to
specific
know each other.
time to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So how long before you got married? First
Oh my
date
gosh,
to married.
now I've got to think that through. Was it a year and then engaged?
Yeah, thereabouts. Maybe a little less than a year
Yeah.
before we got engaged.
Yeah, and then engaged for what?
We got engaged in February and got married in
August.
August 30.
Good job.
Wow, come on! Look at that.
Good job.
Good job.
So,
So
yeah.
that's great. So you see that now you're married, and then we have Nate.
We have Nate.
And so how long had you been married before you had Nate?
3 years.
3 years. Before you
That's pretty
got
good.
pregnant or had him?
Wow.
Before there was a
Probably-
baby
like-
in
like-
the
Here's
picture.
Probably
the
had
thing,
him because
right?
he was born in May. So yeah, probably 2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
That gave you a good foundation.
We did.
Yeah, that's great. So now you got Nate, family's rocking and rolling. Church life is going amazing, right? But tell us in that, so now you're starting your family. And I think this is kind of part of, like, we have our passions, right? Like God gives our desires, our passions, our callings. And if you could just talk to, like, when you were starting your family, like, did you know what your passions were at that point for God? Did you both already know?
We did.
Okay, and so can you talk about that journey, how you navigated that with kids and all of that?
Well, we both felt a call to international overseas mission work.
Yeah.
And before we got married.
Okay.
Okay.
And we didn't really know that about each other.
Sure.
Until there was a mission conference at our church, and they just invited people who just really had a passion for it to stand up, and they were going to pray. And so we were in church together, and we both stood up, but we didn't like we stood up with our eyes closed.
Wow.
And then Jeff, I think, was the first to kind of look over to see, is she in agreement? You
I
know,
was like, is this over? Or
is this over? Or are we, you know, because it was so important.
Yeah.
You know, and it really, that was kind of a moment for us to realize, like, we both felt a call in our life that was compatible, that was
So
that
good.
was so, you know, focused. And so we just committed just, you know, to learn, to, you know, be at every conference, to support things that the church was doing overseas. But we both had a lot going in the church and his job was going amazing, that it didn't really become something right away.
I mean, there's a lesson in that,
Yeah.
because, you know, we make this commitment and our life prospers in every area, not just the
100%,
avenue that you
yeah.
go in for missions. And we've seen that with many people, and it
Yeah.
can throw you for a loop, because you think, wait a minute, I've made this call to missions and now God's blessing me here.
Right.
What does that mean? That's confusing.
Yeah.
But when we look back at it, when it was finally the moment, everything coalesces, and we look back at all of those other things that seemed to be non-congruent with a mission
Yeah,
call.
sure.
He was preparing us, he was
Preparing us.
organizing,
So
he was
good.
putting things in place. It all fit.
How long before it started to fit? Like it had that no, not before it started to fit. How long
Right.
before, like,
We
not-
made the
Yeah.
yeah. So Nathan again.
It's always Nathan.
That firstborn.
So we just really had it in our hearts. And then again, I think it was around that age 10, Nathan came home from school one day and he was like, I want to be a missionary pilot. And we were like, oh, you know, and basically he had just read a story at school about Nate Saint, Jim Elliott, the whole Auca Indians, the being martyred for your faith. And so he was like, I want to become a mission pilot. And so then Jeff and I were like, okay, our family's ready to do a family mission trip.
Yeah.
And so that's when we went into the mission pastor and we just asked, you know, are there any family mission trips, you know, being organized right now, because we would like to go on one as a family. And basically they were like, no, there's nothing on the horizon here right now. We have one trip that we've been asked to do, and it's to Sierra Leone, Africa. But we need, but we don't, it's not a place where a family can go. So you jumped in on that then.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, at that point in time, in '99, it was in the middle of probably one of the most brutal African wars,
Absolutely.
the whole Blood Diamond thing.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the worst places on the planet.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's not a place for a family to
Right.
go, but there was a clear call that God was opening a door for us.
Wow.
You know, and so we talked about it, prayed about it, and realized that, all right, this is a first step, you know, and
Yeah.
that, you know, I needed to go. There was some healthcare related kinds of things, and that had been my background for 15 years in healthcare.
Wow.
That opened the door for that, and so we stepped through that door, even though it was a family call.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and this didn't necessarily feel exactly like what we thought it would look like.
Yeah.
But we were sure, and God used it in incredible ways.
That's amazing.
I think a key thing too is when we made the decision to go into full-time missions, we knew that to begin, Jeff would be doing these trips by himself because it wasn't safe for the whole family to
Sure.
go. And so we just gathered the kids around and we were like, okay, guys, you know, this is what we've decided to do. And I mean, they were ecstatic that we were going to do mission work. They were all, you got these little kids, you know, 9, 7, 5, and 3, and they're all just jumping around. I'm sure Aaron at 3 didn't totally catch the picture, you know, but they were so excited, and it just really did something for us as a family.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, but, you know, even though we can't go with Dad right now, your part in this is that we're going to come together and pray for him.
So good.
We're going to support him by, you're going to have to sacrifice your dad for a week or two at a time.
Yeah.
He won't be around, but that's our part that we're playing in this.
So amazing.
And so that just again, it just set us up knowing that we're all together in this. This is the right timing, and this is what God wants for us to be doing.
It's amazing.
So you went on the first one by yourself then?
First
I did.
few.
Okay.
The first
few.
several, yeah.
Okay.
So for you, you were married 13 years, knowing that this is what you're called to, but not doing it,
Not doing it.
right? And-
But renewing that
Yeah.
commitment every year.
See, that's what I was just going to ask you. Like, how did you guys as a couple? I think for us, one of the things we talk about all the time is sometimes people think I know this is what I have to do, right? I know this is what I have to do. I know this is what I have to do, and because it doesn't happen right away, they start to get discouraged and think they heard wrong,
Right,
or
right.
they're not listening right. I remember
Right.
me and Mandy when I first got saved. I remember saying to me, I think I'm supposed to lead a church. Like I knew I was supposed to lead a church. It wasn't think. I knew I was supposed to lead a church. But it didn't make any sense. I had not been saved very long, right? I thought this is crazy.
We're like, oh God.
But I knew it. I remember saying to me, I know I'm supposed to lead a church. And I remember years later, just every year, but like, God, I know you're going to open the door for this. And I'm just going to keep preparing for that at some point. I mean, I thought when I was 60, I'd be ready. You know what I mean? Like, that was my belief system. And I remember, I think the first person I ever mentioned it to was Kayla, outside of my wife. We were sitting with Kayla, and I said, I just really feel like I'm supposed to lead a church. I know I'm supposed to lead a church at some point. And then I don't think I said it again for another two years or so when I mentioned it to Andrew, like, I think I'm supposed to do this. I know I'm supposed to do this. But every year, actually it wasn't every year, it was probably every 6 months, it was something me and Mandy talked about.
Yeah.
Like we prepared ourselves. We were trying to prepare
Sure.
ourselves spiritually and prepare ourselves. And we literally thought we wouldn't do it till we were in our 60s. We thought we'd be tired and then we'd
Yeah.
lead a church or something. And so for us, it was something we constantly talked about and prepared ourselves, but we didn't ever get disappointed or discouraged that it hadn't happened yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We weren't
It
like,
does.
what's going on? Why isn't this
Right.
happening? But sometimes you see that, people get that discouraged, and maybe you guys experienced some discouragement along the way, but you found a way to get through that. Can you just talk to that part of your journey where, every year you're making a recommitment to do something that just isn't materializing the way you think it should?
Right. I think it's important to say too that at the very beginning, that we really felt like we had heard from the Lord. This
Yeah.
is what we're going to do, and but we got tested on it.
Yeah.
So first of all, his family super excited for us, crying that this is the path we had chosen. Just so, and so you get this hype, which again you got to be careful because
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you go right then, or
Sure.
there's still things that play out, But then my side of the family, a different story. What are you doing? That's
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get that kickback, which is actually good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because then you have to think through it, not just emotionally, not just hearing from the Lord, but logically.
Yeah.
How is this affecting our family? And I don't know if you want to add, because that was huge on your shoulders, especially.
Yeah. We've always told people at some point in your preparation, there is a line that really costs you something.
Yeah.
And it's different for everyone. For us, all right, we needed to make some material changes in our life. That wasn't a big deal. We could do that. That didn't feel like that would hurt us much. For me, I'm like a golden retriever. Like me. Relationship was huge. And to have to face this, oh my goodness, one side of the family doesn't feel like they're on board. What's every Thanksgiving? What's every Christmas? What
Sure.
every family get together? What's that going to be like now? All of a sudden, it really galvanized,
Yeah.
and actually clarified: is this really God? Are we really committed to this? Are we really going the full journey? And what we've realized is when you come to that line, it's a huge moment. That's where courage is needed. Because you just have to kind of grit your teeth and say, I know, God, I trust you. I'm going to step over the line. And as soon as you step over the line, I mean, in this scenario, I mean, the whole family reconciled. It was a beautiful thing. But having to face that line when every tough thing came up in missions, we never doubted. Because we settled it. And we've seen so many people get brought up to that line, and they're like, God, how can you do this to me? I've done everything for you. Now you're making it even harder?
Yeah.
And they fall back, and it's like, you're so close. Just step over the line.
So good.
And see what God will do. And it just creates such a foundation for the tough times that come, because it's not all a bed of roses.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
So when you were going through that, and you're making the recommitment to this thing God's spoken to you about every year, were there moments where you were disappointed or discouraged that it hadn't fulfilled the way you thought it was going to yet? Or was it always just like, you know what, we're preparing. How was it for you guys emotionally in that time?
I mean, I think it wasn't hard. I think because everything that you do, you're doing it for the Lord, like, and so I feel like we felt fulfilled that whole time before we went over.
Yeah.
But everything you do is for the Lord. So, we were leading and teaching children's worship at the time, and that was fulfilling. You saw kids receive Christ. You were teaching them how to worship the Lord, and you're involved still in moving God's plans forward. And so I think it caused us to go deep.
Yeah.
It caused us to study, and just also just have a peace in the journey that at some point we're going to be ready and the timing is going to be right.
So good.
Yeah, I think, and I think what you really modeled and taught really all of us, which would be something we'd encourage people as well. It's not about the mission. It's about God.
So good.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So many people get wrapped up. It's about my calling. It's about
Yeah.
my mission. It's
Right.
about me getting established into where I know where I need to go. And it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about God. And we were able to find God in every season of our life and find that level of we were content,
Right.
but not complacent.
Right.
So, see, that's
That's so good.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
Because I do
Yeah.
feel like sometimes people live in this life that they're called to this one
Yeah.
thing. So all the stuff they do before really doesn't matter until they hit that one thing
Right.
they're called for,
You're
right?
right.
And they don't have this understanding that. And I know, honestly, I've been there because I knew we were supposed to move to California, and I was very frustrated. And I was like, I'm still here, though. I'm still here. So you only focus on that instead of living in the moment and honestly preparing yourself. Because the reality of it is I had no clue what it actually entailed going to California to lead a church, right?
Right.
Like at all. I was not prepared to do that. And I think that is so important if we can understand that it's not about the mission, it's about God, because He's in everything. I wish I would have known that before we embarked on anything. And I just think it's so important to realize that now, because it seems like
So good.
that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
Only if I get to that, because all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
it doesn't really count. Do you know what what
yeah.
I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and I think people, they feel bored, or they feel like there's too much routine, or and that's where people try to make something happen too fast.
Yeah.
It's got to be now. It's got to be now, and not finding that place of every day there's something to do for Him. There's something,
So true.
and it doesn't have to be like this big picture up here. Every day there's something that you can.
Well, I think it's the mindset you guys had helps what you do not become your identity.
Yeah.
Your identity
Sure.
stays rooted in Christ, and I think I love listening. Like I didn't know this about your story, but I wanted everybody to hear it because I remember listening to you. I don't remember where it was, if I'm honest, but you guys were talking about you were doing some sort of teaching, and one of the things you were talking about was patience for God's process, right, and finding fulfillment and all these. And you were just talking. I remember thinking like this is the perfect example of someone who God could trust.
Yeah.
Letting them know at 18, 19 years old what he's going to call them to, and know that it might not look exactly how they think it's going to look at 20.
Right.
You know, and you just walked out the process, and I wanted you to share that because I think it was so powerful. That's really good. So, good job, guys.
Good job.
Good job. So now you're 13 years in. You've done a couple of mission trips on your own. How many do you think you did? Like 3 or 4? Is that what you said?
Probably
Yeah.
a little bit, well, maybe 5 or so.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Now, how many years had passed since you started going before the family could join you?
A few years.
Yeah.
Because really, what pulled the family into the actual on the ground mission thing was when the AIDS pandemic really began to hit Africa.
Yeah.
Because then we started traveling a lot more overseas. And it started to pull the family in. Our kids were a little bit older, and we got to travel so much. I mean, almost every 6 weeks there was a trip to Africa. It's like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So I think it was you that finally said, we should just live there.
Just, yeah, because like, why are we going back and forth?
Sure.
I mean, that's waste of time and money.
Yeah.
We just need to be there on the ground, even if it's just for a while, just to get things really going and running smoothly with whatever projects were going on. So I think our first trip we went over with the kids was 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I think we were home for about 6 months, and then we went back again for however long that.
Yeah, almost 2 years,
Yeah.
I think, something
So-
like that. But that's what on boots on the ground pulled us in as a whole family.
How was that for the kids being there?
They thrived. They loved it. It was an adventure. I mean, we tried to make it an adventure. We worked closely with the school that they were involved in here, and so I was homeschooling, but I had all the curriculum. And then at that time, way back when, people typically put their kids in boarding schools.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And so, everyone thought that they would end up in the boarding school in, was it Kenya? And we were like, no, we're going to keep them with us. They're going to they're staying a part of what we do. And so each kid had their niche. Nathan was on worship team, Zambian worship team, and Abby started a school, and Hannah took care of babies, and Aaron, just was Mr., around pulling, other missionary kids in. And so everyone had their place. Everyone had their piece. Everyone was involved. And that, we just, family's important. That's intentional time together. And so I feel like it helped the kids even solidify who they were and what their calling looks like, and just giving them a global perspective of not everybody lives the same way I do when I'm back, in the States. And
There is one funny story.
Please tell us that.
oh no.
So we took this little vacation. We were 90 miles from one of the 7 wonders of the world, Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
Oh.
We took this family vacation to go see Victoria Falls. There was a game drive. We saw these wild elephants, giraffes,
Whoa,
zebras,
wow.
Really?
all this
Yeah.
stuff. And we're staying at this resort thing. And so I'm going to have a dad moment. So we're eating our pizza and stuff. And so I'm telling the kids, I'm like, guys, you've had the most awesome experience of your life. Do you realize you've experienced things that less than 1% of the kids in the entire world have experienced? They think the coolest thing is going to Disney World.
Well,
And it
yeah.
got stone quiet. And I'm
Who
like,
asked?
nobody's saying anything. And I don't remember, one of the kids goes, Dad, does that mean we can't go to Disney World?
You know, they've been on a water safari, you know, a land safari, seen Victoria Falls, all this amazing stuff. Can we go to Disney World?
Did they get to see it?
Did you ever take them to Disney World?
They've all been, I think.
They've all been. I can't
not with
stand
us.
amusement parks, so we gave to some friends to take them to Disney
Yeah.
World.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good job.
That's a
Good
great
job.
story. Nate was telling me when we were talking with Nate and Leah, one of the things that we were talking about their encounter with God, and he had said, I don't remember what age he said it was, but he said he did not want to go to Africa.
Oh, the church.
And you had said, can you just give God the next 3 months?
Yeah.
And one of the things he said about it, he said, I was like, yeah, I can give him 3 months. He said that was like a super impactful moment for him. Relationship with God changed. Everything changed. And I think there's, like, listening to him tell the story was just powerful. And hearing you guys talk about, like, having the family be part of the mission God's put you on. I mean, we talk about a time when our kids have always served in the church, and they had they were
Right.
part of praying about moving and praying about where we're going to live and praying about, you know, what we were going to do in church. And, you know, when we were in California, like, you know, they had to do stuff, you know, like sometimes they were the ushers, but they wanted to serve and be part of it. They wanted to feel a part of something,
Sure.
not, you know, separated from it or left to the side while mom and dad did something.
Right.
I think you guys did the exact same thing, and watching the fruit of that in your kids' life has been powerful, and even the testament of who God is in their lives. I mean, Nate, one of his most impactful moments of his walk as a Christian
Right.
was because you simply asked him to give God 3 months, right? Because you needed him to be a part of what you guys were doing. So I think it was so wise, and it's really bore a ton of fruit in your
Yeah.
life. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
That's really good. Good job, guys.
I mean, I do want to say, I mean, not everything has been perfect
Oh, sure.
and a bed of roses.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm
there have
sure.
been
Oh, yeah.
struggles, there have been things that we've struggled with, that the kids have struggled with.
Oh,
There's been difficulties.
Yeah.
You know, but in the grand scheme of things, none of them
Regret
would
going.
regret
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
at all.
So powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm
It-
sure that's changed their lives.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And gave them a totally different perspective than they ever had before. So, but you're right. I agree. Everything's not great all the time.
No,
Right.
no, that's
Right.
100% true, right? And when God calls you, someone calls your family to it. Andrew say this thing all the time that talking about the boat going across, you know, and how the water was choppy, and then, you know, walk out, he sinks, and God grabs him and pulls him out. You know, that whole story. And he says you'll never go under going over. You know, when you're
Right.
going across what God's called you, you're never going to go under. But God doesn't promise you won't sink a little. Like, I remember he would
Right.
speak that, and I'd
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like, yeah, that's very true. You won't completely go under, but you're going to sink a bit. You're going to get
get
wet.
wet.
You're going to
Right,
get
right,
wet.
right,
And I
right,
think
right.
there's an aspect of understanding that those challenges are part of following the calling that God's put into your family's life. But I think one of the keyest things you said is, like, you guys knew God said this was for you guys.
Right.
And when you know God said it, that gives you the strength to carry on through the storms. And so I think it's just fantastic that you brought your kids along and they were part of that process. And
Right.
so great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great job.
Can I want, so if you guys were to talk to, like, now that you guys have been through this,
Sure.
right? And the, you know, perspective and 2020, like, it's
Yeah, right,
always,
right.
you have a much clearer picture when you've been through it.
Now
What
that
would-
you're 32.
Right, 32, 33, right? What would you say for somebody, you know, in their 20s or, you know, just got married, that they say, this is our calling? What would you give them as the best practical and spiritual advice that they could? Because practically you have to do something as well to prepare. What would you say to them knowing everything you know now?
Sure.
Well, I feel like we've counseled a lot of
Yeah.
people, especially people wanting to go on the mission field. And I always start with your relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
That you understand the Father and His heart for you, and that you let him develop a heart for people. I mean, and then just really talking about relying on the Holy Spirit. And I know I talk about the Holy Spirit a lot, but it's like, he's like, yeah.
Yeah, we do too. It's fine. I was like, yeah, that's how it works.
But just, you can't step into anything without his grace on your life,
So
his
good.
power in your life, his presence in your life, knowing that you can say, Holy Spirit, help me.
Yeah,
And having the confidence that he's going to answer that.
Yeah.
so
You
true.
know, and so I think, now I have to remember what the question was. But to encourage people, you start with the spiritual.
Yeah,
You know,
agree.
if you're preparing for anything, and you know you have this calling, start with really building your spiritual capacity, and build that connection with your kids in it. Get into the Word, get into His presence,
So good.
and just know that there's things that are going to come against you. You got to know that. You got to know how to take authority over that, and while keeping that vision of God's got this kingdom purpose for you that's going to be rolling out, and just being really sensitive to His timing.
so good. I think that's phenomenal advice.
There's a little formula that we used to say to people. It's
Yeah.
called pray it, weigh it, say it, pay it.
Okay.
That's really good.
And it's
Hold on, people might want to write that down.
it's a sequential thing.
Yeah.
Because you have to hold what it's like Mary when she's
Yeah.
been visited by the angel. She treasures this stuff.
Yeah.
You have to hold some things for a while before you shoot your mouth off.
Yeah.
Because two things happen if you go public too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not of God, but then everybody gets excited and then there's peer pressure, there's, okay, you've gone public, and so now there's this momentum that
Expectation.
propels you into something that maybe you shouldn't be into.
Yeah.
Or if it is of God, but you get all the people going, well, I can't tell you how many times we've heard like,
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
well, what
Yeah.
about your kids and their
Yeah.
friends,
Oh, yeah.
and all those little subtle things, if you go public too quickly, it can derail you
Yeah.
in a number of ways. Either you're doing something you shouldn't do, or you shy away from something you should do.
Yeah.
So I think we try to make sure that people have done their due diligence with God. They've really prayed about it. They've weighed it. They've looked at it. They've been careful who they've talked to before they really go public with it. But then realize there comes a moment too where you actually
You have to speak.
you have to speak it out and you have to pay the price.
So
to
good.
walk it out.
It's so good, Jeff. That's, I don't know who came up with that, but brilliant. Might want to patent that.
I think I probably stole it from another pastor.
You just run with it, man. That is fantastic. That's really powerful, right? I think that the key, the key part's kind of for me when I listen to the second part of weighing it. Like I feel it. I think this. I know. I believe. I'm in. Am I going to weigh it? And I think being willing to weigh it is important. Right? It speaks to humility. It speaks to the fact that maybe I could get something wrong. Maybe I could be moved by a moment. It's not
Right.
of God.
Right,
but
right.
Really powerful. Really powerful. I would say those are two incredibly wise spiritual nuggets for people as they start their journey. Give us some practical ones.
Go ahead.
Well, get yourself in order.
Yeah.
You
it's
know,
good.
you don't have to be perfect.
No.
But you can't go and think that missions is going to solve
Right.
the things you're working with.
That's really true.
We're working on. Yeah.
You've got to make some progress on that. I think that's one practical thing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of. I mean, finance.
Sure. Yeah.
Just get your stuff in order.
How
you
much
know?
would you say the average person is going to cost somebody financially to do a missions trip?
Depends on where you're going.
Going to Africa. Let's say
How
Africa.
long you're going for.
2 weeks.
us the numbers, Danette.
Who wants some numbers, Danette?
Numbers.
Wow.
Probably about 3,000.
3,000?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, you guys have done missions for a long time. Like, if you're going to go to Africa to do a mission trip, really, in your opinion, how long should you be there to make it make sense? You know, like sometimes you'll hear people say, I'm going to go to Africa for a week. And I always think to myself, a week, I mean, you're going to get there. It's going to take you 2 days to get there probably. Then you're going to need to sleep for a day or two. And then you're going to do a couple things, and then you're going to come back, right? Like what? But I don't know. I've never done missions. So if you could, like, if I was going to, if my kid came to you and said, I'm thinking about doing a mission trip to Africa, how long should I go to have a really healthy impact? What would be your suggestion?
Go ahead.
I might be different than you, but I think preparation beforehand
Yeah.
and debriefing after is really going to be key
Yeah, absolutely.
for how it doesn't matter how long you've gone.
Okay.
So if they go for a week, I believe God can
Yes.
switch a life. I believe God can. I mean, we saw it.
Yeah.
We had team after team after team come through, and they came for various lengths. But even even if being there for 3 days, they witnessed the power of God. They witnessed something that is so outside of their box,
Yeah.
and what they've contained and what they've even been brought up in to believe. Can change someone's trajectory, but there needs to be a beforehand and a follow-up
It's really good.
for that experience and the depth of understanding that they need to glean from that experience
Yeah.
to really remain with them, impact them the way it should. So especially the debrief is super important.
That's so good.
It is. It really is crucial. I mean, I think that there are two groups of people. There's a short-term mission experience where you're going for, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, and we're believers in that. There
Yeah.
are many people in missions that go, oh, all that money, plane tickets, everything, just give it to the poor.
Sure,
It's like,
yeah.
no, we've seen them be
Yeah,
a blessing. God
absolutely.
has worked in them, through them. If they do it right, like Danette said, it can be awesome. There's another group of people though, that feel, hey, this is my life.
Yeah.
God is calling me to relocate, to change my life, or to move out of what I'm doing. If it's not even overseas, it could be in the States here, but it's just changing, who I am, what my vocation and so forth is. There's a different set of dynamics between those two groups.
Certainly.
The short-term mission group, it's a great experience for people.
Yeah.
Because it just broadens your horizons, and Danette's absolutely correct. The preparation beforehand and the debriefing afterwards is crucial. We would debrief with teams every night when they were on
Would
the
you really?
field, and
Wow.
it was
So much happens in a day.
powerful.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Like, me and Amanda love the idea of missions. Never done one. We love the idea of them, right? And we've heard so many great testimonies about them. But let me ask you, like, one of the things that I've heard, and so I want to ask you this, is like, sometimes when we ask people all the time about their salvation experience. I'm shocked at how many people get saved on a missions trip to serve God's people. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think again, you're out of your environment.
Yeah.
Everything is unfamiliar. So you're almost in your weakest moment,
Yeah.
and you see yourself in a different way. I think you see your need,
Yeah.
and you also, when you see how others are living and surviving. But the thing is too is you're meeting people who are super passionate about God overseas.
Yep.
And they live in the most humble situations,
Yeah.
but they're on the street and they're sharing the gospel, and they're carrying their Bible everywhere, and it's almost like a wake up. Like, have I really been living a Christian life?
So good.
I think I need to look at my salvation, and so I think a lot of times, people recommit,
Yeah.
and they'll call that their moment.
Yeah.
Because they realize they've been kind of lukewarm
Yeah.
and not super passionate for
So
God.
amazing.
I think the other piece of it is if you go on a mission trip, you have zero control.
Yeah.
Oh,
God
sure.
strips you
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
all your control. You go on a mission trip with us, I'm telling you when you're going to get up. I'm telling you what you're going to eat. I'm kind of telling you when you're going to talk, when you're not going to talk, where you're going to go. I mean, I'm kidding
Yeah.
a little bit,
No,
but
I
there's
get- yeah.
Yeah.
people are taken outside of a zone where they have control, and it opens up a door for God to get their attention in ways they
So good.
can't elsewhere.
Wow. That's
I
fantastic.
never thought of that before, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
I've learned a lot in the hour we've been talking. Like, I've learned so much. And I think listening to you guys, your heart for missions, and I mean, I don't know if, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with where your heart for Africa, right, hasn't shined through, or your heart for missions in other countries and changing people's lives in that way. It's always impacted me.
Yeah.
Me and Mandy have always been so impressed with it, and I think for us, I know for me, when I thought of missions, I always thought, oh yeah, man, you lived overseas for 10 years,
Yeah.
And you
Like
lived
the
on
wild
a,
thornberries.
yeah, you lived on a farm, and you had a pet
Right.
elephant, you rode the elephant,
Yeah,
you made, and when I met you guys, and I remember somebody said to me, they do, I think they said that they do missions in Africa is what I think they said. I don't remember exactly, but so I was like, oh, it was after you had left. You dropped off the soup, you'd left. I think I asked somebody, oh, like, what do they
Who
do?
are those people?
And they were like, oh, they do. Actually, what they said is Danette prays all the time, and they do missions too. Is what they said. And I thought, that's
Accurate.
fair description. Fair
Great.
description.
Great.
But I think you were doing something on a prayer team at the time, and that was how they described you, right? And I was really taken back that oh, you don't live there for 10 years. I mean, that's literally where I was at. I kind of thought in my head that's what missions was. And I remember talking to you about short-term missions and quick trips and people going over there. And I think one of the things I've always been impressed by is the impact that the people that go to do a mission trip, I've often wondered if the impact they receive from doing that might be greater than the impact that God's doing in the country they're doing it in. They usually come back so changed in their heart and in their character. And I'm just very grateful that you guys have spent so much of your time giving yourself to that, preparing people for that, helping make that part of who we are as a people and what we're passionate about. So guys, I just want to commend you.
Good job, guys.
Yeah,
Good job.
it's
Well, and
Appreciate.
I mean, and you guys, I think it's goes without saying. I mean, it's not just an overseas thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
true.
honestly, we've been to Orange County. I think it might have been a little harder going from West Michigan to Orange County
probably
than
Sam,
West
yeah.
Michigan to Africa. I just got to tell you.
that might be
Yeah.
true. That might be true. And it was. I got to be honest. It's always we have been. I remember years ago. I'll say this story, but we have a heart for children
Sure.
and orphans. I remember years ago going to I was convinced me and Mandy had to move to Africa and start an orphanage
Yes,
and take
sir.
care of a bunch of kids. I was convinced that was what we had to do, and it wasn't, right? But I had this passion.
This
to
is
be,
where you weigh things.
Yeah, you weigh
Before
things,
you
right?
say
You weigh things
things.
before you say things,
Right?
And I
Which
went.
I'm so thankful that's the order we did.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very grateful. And but I remember
Wisdom in that statement
There's a
right there.
lot of wisdom in that statement. But I remember we were super passionate about it, and we realized this isn't going to be something we're going to do.
Right.
But we really just had a heart for it. And I remember when meeting you guys and hearing your story and then hearing what you guys were doing, and I thought, this is it's already being done.
Yeah.
Like it's being done right now. And it was so good to realize the thing I'm passionate about doesn't mean I have to be the one
Exactly.
doing
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
Like that means I need to come alongside you and pray for you
Yeah.
and come alongside and support it and
whatever
be
we
with
can.
it. And not everybody has to do it. We
Yeah.
can
Right.
support it,
Yeah.
believe in it, and talk about it. And so we just are grateful and just wanted to share that with you guys. We wanted people to hear from you, and they already met your son Nate,
They did.
and he's pretty special. Big fan of Nate and all your kids, but you guys just are amazing, and I just want to thank you. Thank you so
It's been a
much.
great time.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been good.
Awesome. Love you guys. Thanks so much.
Love you guys too.